Let's unpack the chip sector further with Bernstein semiconductor analyst Stacy Rasgon. Stacy, it's great to see you. Nvidia doesn't report until late-ish November, but of course we have so many signals this week, right? With CapEx from some of the Mag 7. What do they need to show us to keep the Nvidia party going?
Look, they just need to show us that demand is there and strong and ideally growing, right? I mean, the big concern there's a number of concerns when anything runs this much, but I mean, the biggest concern has just been sustainability. Like the numbers have gotten so big so quickly, you just worry that it can't keep going. And like, as of right now, from everything we can see, it looks like it's still going. Like I get the nervousness. It clearly is not time to worry this year. I don't even think it's time to worry next year. We'll see as we go farther out. But I think at this point, they just need to show that demand is strong and growing and accelerating. And at least from where we're standing right now, everything we can see, things look pretty good, I think.
Right. Stacey, I want to ask you about the story that Seema was just talking about, and that is the idea that Trump especially, but perhaps both candidates would crack down on manufacturing of chips inside of the U.S., but what we've seen from TSMC versus what we haven't seen from Intel. Sort of talk about that and what it would mean if TSMC wasn't able to ramp up here in the United States.
Look, I'll be honest. So I heard Trump's comments as well, and he was, what did he say on Rogan? He said he didn't like the CHIPS Act. He wanted to replace it with tariffs. Yeah. I mean, it makes, look, it's Trump, so Trump is gonna Trump, but it doesn't make any sense, right? The idea that like Taiwan has stolen, quote unquote, our chip making abilities is ridiculous. Like that is not true. And like not allowing foreign companies to make chips on U.S. soil, that is actually what we want. I mean, look, the whole like the idea that we are dependent on Taiwan and that is becoming increasingly an untenable situation is very true. And you know, we want to get leading edge infrastructure built here in the U.S. And to be honest, from a policy standpoint, it really shouldn't be mattering all that much who is building it. I understand why Intel is sort of named the national champion, but if the goal is really to get as much leading edge capacity built here as quickly as possible, we should be giving the money to the folks who can build it. And as of right now, that entity is TSMC. And you're right, you know, there was some news flow of last week that suggested that their yield ramp in Arizona is actually exceeding targets and maybe even exceeding what they do in Taiwan. There are no other players, neither Intel nor Samsung, that can make claims that anywhere near that. So if the goal is to build the capacity and get it here and installed and running in the U.S. to de-risk the supply chain, that's happening right now. And so stopping that would be a problem. Sure.
Have we given up on Intel then?
Well, we'll see. They report earnings on Thursday. I guess we'll see what they have to say. But I mean, clearly, you know, Intel's core business is under pressure. They're losing share and they can't rely on their own manufacturing right now. So they're actually outsourcing more, which is impacting gross margins and everything like that. So their suggestion is that they believe their process roadmap over time is getting fixed. They're going to bring that volume back into the U.S. and it's going to make everything, you know, wonderful. I guess we'll see. You know, they had a day a few months ago where they were sort of giving out some targets for where they thought things could go over time, and it really was like a 2030 story. Right, even if they are on track, like it's a slog between now and when we would actually see things really start to improve. And as of right now, we don't actually know if they're truly improving or not. So strap in for Thursday, I guess. It'll be entertaining, if nothing else, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're not going to get Nvidia for a little bit, Stacy. But, you know, every so often you hear, and I'm sure you do it more than I do, well, there's, you know, a small company over here that's developing a next generation chip that's going to ultimately disintermediate or push Nvidia to the side. I mean, how long is their dominance, do you think, going to last?
Well, I mean, there's always somebody in the wings. That this is an enormous market, right? The idea that there's not going to be others trying to take a piece of that pie is ridiculous. Of course they are. Now, that being said, like NVIDIA's built up their position in silicon and hardware and software and systems and ecosystem over 10 or 20 years, right? And they've put those moats into place. And so anybody that is trying to get in there, and I'm not talking that people can't get little bits. Clearly, you know, AMD and others are getting, you know, little bits. But to be like material in that market, you've got to like penetrate those moats. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do. And especially for a startup, I mean, when you just look at the amount of money that NVIDIA has to invest in these things versus, you know, smaller, you know, very small companies, It's tough. It's very, very tough. So at this point, I'm not terribly worried about some like young upstart coming in and taking a massive amount of Nvidia. So I'm not even really that worried about larger companies, larger competitors going in and trying to take a. Doesn't seem to be impacting them very much right now.